Hello and welcome to another video. You might have seen a few of the videos I made on the BRN-180 system from Brownells. I did their sporting option, I did their 10.5 inch SBR/pistol option. That was a side racking. Both the Sport and the 10.5 were both great options they were able to use. And in fact, I love the 10.5 so much, it is currently my home defense rifle just because it functions so flawlessly and I love it. When I went to SHOT Show 2025, which you guys might have seen the video on that as well, they just released their new Gen 3 of the BRN-180, and it is very, very exciting. This could kind of be looked at as the Galil killer or America's AK-47. The whole system is really changed up where it is still kind of like the heart of the BRN-180 system, but it's really had a lot of feedback, customer feedback from you guys that changed up this entire thing to be what it is today. And it is very, very exciting. So we're just gonna start from the top, work our way back, go through some of the newer features that are available on this platform, and kind of give you my thoughts on where this is holding. So starting from the tip, I'm going to tell you a few things that were kind of interesting that I feel like I'm curious to see how it plays out in the future. So starting off with the basic information, this is a 13.7 inch barrel with a pin and welded muzzle brake to bring it to the legal 16 inch requirement. Now, what I was told is that this is their kind of compensator that they put onto the top. So I was told as a compensator, not a flash hider, but you'll see in the close-ups that the way this is designed is pretty interesting. It's pretty much a escaping hole every other hole. So the areas where you might think would be compensation are actually closed off. So it's kind of like 3 or 4 actual slots that are open, and it's also open on the bottom. So it's almost like a star pattern effect under fire. So I'm very curious to see how over time that feels with recoil mitigation. I might over time replace that with a more conventional compensator, but that's what came from the factory. So I'm going to test that out and see how that plays out. Next kind of like thing I'll mention for the design that I thought was unique is that the way that the rails for the M-LOK is going to be attached, usually you kind of have your top Picatinny rail, then you have a 3, 9 o'clock, and then 6 o'clock position to be able to mount. This is now using a toolless system, so you're able to adjust the gas ports if you're going to be running this suppressed. Now, what ends up being a slight issue for me is I wanted to mount this flashlight a little bit further back so that I could also just get rid of using wires. I've kind of gone away from using wires. If I'm able to just use my left-hand thumb to just activate the light, that's more of a preference to me. But with this new design, the areas where I would usually mount the light is actually either opened up because of the toolless system for the gas port, or they have a kind of like a just enclosed area where I guess since that's where the gas tube is, they don't want you to make accidental contact with it, which means I'm not able to mount anything in those areas. So those areas are no longer usable for the mounting purpose. So it might be something you want to consider. I don't know if the rails are going to be swappable options. Yeah, I'm sure in the future they will, but right now it does seem proprietary. So that might be something you'd want to consider as well. On the top, when you're looking top down, you'll actually see the number setting that you're in, whether it be 1 or 2 for open or close, or how wide you want the gas tube to be open when you're running it. So right now, the issue we had is that I showed a close-up of the rail system. The M-LOK doesn't stay in place because since there's kind of like these lips that come out on both sides, it doesn't allow like the key system of the M-LOK to hold the actual light in place. So right now the light fell off during the first few shots we took of it. So for now, it's off until I figure out if there's something I'm missing here. This light body, and which is really, really nice, is from Reptilia Core. You're also able to get that from Brownells if you want to be able to check that out. It is a great option where you're able to use a scout body and choose different light heads based on your preference, and also able to choose between if you want just a clicky tail cap or a button activation, which gives you a few options there. The BRN-180 is an enclosed or captured recoil system, which means you theoretically don't need a stock to be able to fire this system. It's fully encaptured. Now, what that means is that it's running on a piston system, so you can actually see the piston on the upper receiver over there. Now going towards the back, this is where things have really changed up. On older previous iterations of this rifle, the charging mechanism was on the right side of the rifle. So if you are a right-handed shooter, you had to kind of rack it, kind of Russian AK style, to be able to get it into battery. Now they've actually swapped it where the whole action is going to be on the left side of the rifle, which means again, as a right-handed shooter, you keep your right hand on fire control and you're able to use all the other action stuff on the left side of the gun, which I think is really great. What's cool also is that they have a dust cover that's a reciprocating dust cover. So pretty much the dust cover is always closed, which means no dust or debris will get into the chamber area. However, under recoil, when it reciprocates, you see the dust cover open up, which means it's now able to eject the casing. And then when it goes back into battery, it is now closed, which means you never need to worry about that. It's constantly closed on activation. Now, what's also interesting is that on the opposite side, which you'd think would work in unison, this is a non-reciprocating charging handle, which means over time, when you're racking the side, if your face is close to it, you won't see that being close to whacking you in the face, which is probably a little bit more comfortable to consider. Now, kind of like the SIG MCX, there's kind of a rubber inline of where this also blocks any dust or debris from getting into the action area. Now, initially, a lot of people were concerned because that seems kind of low quality, where if it's kind of like a rubber gasket, it might wear over time. But what you have to remember, this is a non-reciprocating charging handle, which means it's not going to get nearly the same amount of wear as it would on the opposite side, because again, it is non-reciprocating, so it does work really well. The bolt face of this rifle is very similar to an AR-15, so there's a lot, again, like kind of head tilts, head nods to the AR-15 design while still maintaining a completely different rifle. This is able to be put onto a standard AR-15 lower receiver, which again means with any AR-15 lower receiver you already have, this could just be swapped over to that, and it does function really well. You're going to obviously see that in the live fire that we're going to do in a second. Something also that was very exciting for me is that the amount of times I've launched the internals of this rifle out 16 feet away in a different direction happened way too many times. It pretty much works on 2 spring-loaded systems that's going to be using the capturing of the internals. What they've done to switch that up is now there's actually a kind of a switch that only after you deactivate that switch and put it up like a regular button, it then actually allows you, I'm doing this slowly because I don't want to break my face. There we go, look at that. Okay, so now you're able to actually remove all the internals from the rifle, but again, the big thing for me is that it's captured, which means by simply pushing down that lever, it no longer allows it to just launch into a different dimension, and you wonder where your springs and the rest of your face is. So really good basic design that really has changed up everything else. The low receiver, again, is able to be a standard AR-15 low receiver, so if you want to run a Geisley trigger, you're able to do that. Ambidextrous controls, flare to magwell, all the other controls also function, so I'm going to now press on the bottom of the ping pong paddle, and you can see that it does allow the bolt to be locked back, and then I'm able to send the bolt forward as well with the same regular controls. So all the kind of ergonomics that you already have on your rifle that you're used to, you're able to do the same, other than the side charging, which allows it to be a piston-driven system. Lastly, I also want to mention I'm using the Holosun 515 GM, which you're able to get from opticsforce.com, as well as the Reptilia 193 riser from Brownells. So thank you again to Brownells for sending out the rifle, the flashlight, and the riser, all available on brownells.com. 193 has kind of been the gold standard for me now. I can't do absolute co-witness anymore, or even lower 1/3. 193 for me is a very comfortable height where you're naturally sitting, or when you're using your rifle, and I think overall it works really, really well. So if you have any questions on this, if you want to see any other parts of this rifle, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This is Raziel Cohen with the tacticalrabbi.com. Thank you for watching. Still having